let's start with the seedling stage. Lighting, environment conditions, irrigation, nutrition, all these things can be adjusted when you're crop steering, right? So maybe let's start with lighting. What do you recommend for, say, the amount of par or spectrum?
Yeah, so one thing I would like to break down with the light before we actually go into the specifics like that is I think we mentioned before this chat that one of the things I got interested in was the different quality of light from indoor, from outdoor, from glasshouse. And what's really interesting is the and I know this from my time working in photosynthesis, the power range is like it's like trimmed at the ends, at both ends. It doesn't include the UV spectrum, it doesn't include the kind of far red spectrum, which is just like it's just an interesting point because my understanding of physiology, both of those things are pretty important. And if you just went by the textbooks, you would say, oh, well, you can't do without them. But we know from experience you can very well do without them. Both, generations of horticultural plants that have been grown in glasshouses, all sorts of things from fruits and vegetables right through to, medicinal plants and also indoor as well. We know that the horticulture markets thrive without the needs for these clipped spectrums, if you will. So that's one thing to consider, though. It's like, again, part of crop steering is understanding, like, so for the seedling stage and for lighting, if you've got a kind of harsh environment, like I would suggest that you try and sow your seeds in quite a harsh environment. Which, what does that mean? Okay, if it's kind of cold, do it on a window ledge, so it's inside but warm, but not like extremely warm, and try and get the seeds to germinate at a little bit lower temperature. That builds in a hardiness. Giving them exposure to the outside early on as well really helps build up their stress resistance for the future, so that you've got things like wind resistance that they build up, so they tend to be a little bit stockier if you put them out right. If you're growing for, what was the next one I was going to say? Yeah, for, like I said, with the UV light. So UVB light triggers a bunch of stress responses in the plant, which actually changes gene expression quite a way, actually. And there's a lot of things like it will help with UV protection, actually, believe it or not, which is ironic. But it will also help with things like DNA repair. So whenever there is damage to the cells from other, whether it be chemicals in the ground, whether it be, extreme UV, the plant can actually repair itself a lot more readily if it's been exposed to UVB light. So understanding that is important. First of all, is that, what do you want to try and achieve here? If you've got a harsh environment, you want to prepare your seedling to be ready for that. Otherwise, if you've got a perfect environment, however, then what you want to do is literally live pretty much by your favorite textbook or your favorite, whatever light manufacturer you've chosen. Go by what they say. I've found that oftentimes the best thing to do is just stick to the, what it says on the tin, to quote an old advert. But generally, what you want from the seedling stage is a lot of blue light compared to red light, plenty green in there, not too intense. Probably, I mean, they just germinating seeds as it just comes out, like maybe 200 micromoles of light in terms of intensity. I don't know if that's a thing you understand, micromoles per meter squared per second, for example. So that's what you would keep it on that. Now, if you wanted to, like I say, make your plant ready for the a harsher environment, and you can't, have a hybrid indoor outdoor way of doing it, then a UVB lamp, which is now quite readily available with a lot of the LED setups, is probably worthwhile, because, like I say, that it doesn't necessarily at that stage increase anything in terms of the medicinal compounds or the overall yield. But what it can do is buffer against some of those stresses that are harder to manage, which, you're basically giving your plant a little bit of a head start in terms of resisting, various types of stress by adding in that UV light. So that would be my wee little kind of top tip on the seedling stage, would introduce something, in the kind of like low blue spectrum into the UVC, UVB, especially, because that will trigger a light complex called UVR8, and this was like only discovered in, like, I don't know, early 2000s, something like that. I was actually in the lab in Glasgow that discovered it during my undergrad. So that's why I've got a little bit of insight on that protein. But it regulates a bunch of things, and if it's not activated, you still get activation of those things it regulates, but you don't get such a strong response. So that's sometimes I've seen plants chosen for their specific pheno, and then they're grown under glass, and they seem really susceptible to different stresses, and this is one of the reasons why, because they're not having that UVB activation. So sorry to kind of go on about that, but it kind of sets us up for talking about light for the next phases of life as well.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.